There's this incredible story kind of tucked away in the book of Proverbs that I think holds the key to understanding the biggest choices we face in life. It's a powerful story about two paths, a moment of temptation and a decision that really can define everything. So let's get into it. It's a question we all bump into at some point, right? How can one small decision, one step that seems so insignificant at the time, actually set the entire course for our future? Well, the book of Proverbs gives us a really powerful and, I think, timeless answer. And what's so amazing is that this huge, life-altering moment, it doesn't happen on some grand stage. It happens on a simple street corner, just as evening is setting in. This story is a powerful reminder that the most profound choices we make often happen in the most ordinary moments of our lives. Now, you might be thinking, okay, that's an ancient story, but really, it's like a mirror for our own lives. Let's take a look at why this story from so long ago is maybe more relevant now than it's ever been. The scene is so deceptively simple. A house, a window, a street getting dark. And that's exactly where its power is. It shows us that temptation hardly ever shows up with a lightning crash. Nope, it usually just whispers to us in the quiet, familiar parts of our day. So how does someone actually end up on the wrong path? Well, the story gives us this incredibly detailed breakdown. You could almost call it the anatomy of folly. Let's just trace the steps this young man takes. The young man is described as lacking sense. Now, it's really important we understand this. This isn't about him not being smart. It's about a lack of discernment. He can't see past the surface of things to the danger that's hiding right underneath an attractive offer. This process is so revealing. The fall is almost never a sudden leap. It's a slow, barely noticeable drift. The specific words in Proverbs are so telling: passing along, taking the road, going toward. Each step is just a small compromise, a tiny little course correction, but when you add them all up, they lead to a truly disastrous place. And we have to see that this isn't just about one person's bad choice. This young man, he's on a path that is well-worn, a path that's as old as humanity itself. It's a path of deception, and it's so important that we learn how to recognize it. And here is the absolute heart of the deception. Folly never, ever shows its true face. It comes to us dressed up as pleasure or as freedom or maybe as a can't-miss opportunity. It's a master marketer selling this beautiful lie that hides a totally devastating truth. The Bible gives us a really clear diagnosis for this spiritual problem. The book of James, chapter 1, verses 14 and 15 just lays it out perfectly. Each person is tempted when he is lured and enticed by his own desire. Then desire, when it has conceived, gives birth to sin, and sin, when it is fully grown, brings forth death. That right there is the timeless pattern of the fall. And this story, it isn't new. It's a tragic echo of the very first temptation, way back in Genesis chapter 3. You see the same pattern. The serpent's persuasive words, the stirring up of desire, the twisting of truth. It's a pattern that has just repeated itself over and over again through history, and always with crushing consequences. Okay, the story takes a really sharp turn right here. That slow, casual drift is over, and now we're about to see the true, brutal cost of these choices that seemed so small at the beginning. That leisurely pace is just gone. Proverbs chapter 7, verse 22 uses this stark, absolutely chilling language. All at once he follows her, as an ox goes to the slaughter. The time for thinking it over is done. He's not in control anymore. He's being led, completely unaware, straight to his own ruin. And the most tragic part of it all, as Proverbs chapter 7, verse 23 tells us, he does not know that it will cost him his life. The deception is total. He is literally walking toward his own death, and he has no idea. Now, this could be a really grim, pessimistic story, couldn't it? Just a dark tale about human weakness. But the Bible never leaves us in a place of despair. It always, always points to hope, to a better path, to the one who is the way, the truth, and the life. The contrast between the young man and Jesus is just, well, it's everything. The young man is completely lost in a fog of deception, but Jesus is the very source of clarity and truth. He doesn't just teach wisdom, he is wisdom. And the contrast just keeps going. The young man drifts into temptation, but when Jesus faced his own temptations out in the wilderness, he stood his ground. He met every single lie with the solid, unwavering truth of God's word. So these two different approaches to temptation, they lead to two vastly different places. The path of folly, that's a one-way road to destruction. But the path of Christ is the only one that leads to real, full, abundant life. Proverbs chapter 7, verse 27 gives us the grim final destination of the path of folly. Her house is the way to Sheol, going down to the chambers of death. Sheol, the realm of the dead in the Old Testament, it represents this final, irreversible separation from life and from God. It's the ultimate dead end. So where does all of this leave us? Well, this story brings us face to face with a fundamental choice, one that every single one of us has to make. Every single day, we hear two competing voices. The first one is the voice of folly. It's often loud, it's persuasive, it's alluring. It promises instant pleasure, a life with no rules, but its promises are empty, and its path only leads to loss and heartbreak. But then there's that other voice. It's usually quieter, but it's deeper, it's more profound. It's the voice of wisdom, the voice of Christ. It calls us to a path that might look harder at first, one that requires self-control, maybe some sacrifice. But its promise is real, and its destination is a life of true purpose and joy. In the end, Jesus doesn't just show us the way. He is the way. His declaration in John chapter 14, verse 6, is the answer to our deepest questions. I am the way and the truth and the life. He's not just a guide on the journey, he is the destination. We've really only been able to scratch the surface of this incredibly deep story. If you'd like to dive in deeper, please check out the link in the description for a fuller discussion. And as you go about your day-to-day, just ask yourself, which voice am I listening to? The answer to that question will make all the difference.